But I really don't have any regrets. I really don't. I've lived exactly how I've wanted to. I've tried my hardest every single time. I didn't win the matches that maybe I should have always won, but I really gave it my all. So that for me is enough.
Hello everybody, welcome back to The Body Serve. I'm Jonathan.
I'm James.
We have lived through a truly astonishing first week of Wimbledon, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Astonishing.
I'm astonished.
Shocking.
I don't know about you.
It's so sad the number of people who don't understand sarcasm, don't you think? More on that later. First I'm going to go private for about a day and then I'll clarify.
Okay. Day one of the tournament saw a lot of withdrawals. Arina Sabalenka pulled out. Her Belarusian counterpart, Victoria Azarenka, pulled out of the tournament. We got word that Andy Murray eventually would be out of the singles draw, would go on to play doubles, but he too wouldn't play singles.
Alexandrova pulled out of her first round against Raducanu. Emma dodged a potentially very difficult first round.
Why? Because you said it was going to be on the previous episode?
Yes. Well, obviously, Alexandrova wasn't healthy, but she's great on the surface. And then early on, we get the loss of the number 8 seed, Zhang Qinwen.
First round.
The number 24 seed, Andreeva.
First round.
Okay, we got it. And Karolina Pliskova, all from that bottom half. So the women's bottom half got very interesting very early on.
There were still quite a few names there for a while.
Yes.
They no longer exist as of this recording.
On the top half, the defending champion Vondrousova lost in her first round match to the Portuguese player Buzas Maneiro, who made it to the third round.
Jessica Pegula also lost in the second round. On the men's side, Felix went out in the first round, so too Korda. You were tickled pink that Jack Draper lost. You were so pleased.
No, I was not. Sometimes it's nice to get a prediction right, you know? I've gotten so many wrong.
You were just so contrary to the idea that Jack Draper could go deep at this tournament. Ubi Urkac out, and unsurprisingly, Stefanos Tsitsipas and Casper Ruud both losing in the second round.
And Andrei Rublev, the number 6 seed in the first round.
Yeah, that was, again, a resurfacing of the self-flagellation, the anger issues. It was once more highly unpleasant.
And much like the women's bottom half, the men's bottom half got interesting very early on. Not quite, there's still a number of seeds left. There's Djokovic, Holger, Taylor Fritz, that guy, de Minaur, but a number of top guys went out fairly early. That could have been tough for Novak. Let's start with the woman of the hour, Lulu Sun.
She's the first woman from New Zealand to reach the round of 16 at Wimbledon since Ruya Morrison in 1959. And if you've listened to the show for a long time, you know that she was featured in one of our episodes, I believe, Hidden Figures in Tennis?
Yes. Ruya is the great and unsung Maori tennis player who flourished in the 1950s and 60s.
Lulu was born in New Zealand to a Chinese mother and Croatian dad. Moved to Switzerland as a child, speaks English, French, and Chinese. She now lives in the US after having gone to college in the US.
Played tennis at University of Texas.
Prior to that, she was raised in Switzerland. So she's represented Switzerland before. She's back now representing New Zealand. And she's now in the quarterfinals of Wimbledon.
She did the junior Grand Slam circuit with her peers like Iga Swiatek and I believe Zhang Qinwen, like that generation. An injury and her mom kind of impelled her to go to college instead of going pro right away. And it's paying off right now.
The organization of this episode is kind of crazy and seriously lacking segues, but we're going to try and do the best we can with what we've got.
We're just going to talk about stuff. Okay, so let's talk about what happened today with Lulu and Emma Raducanu.
Okay. This was a round of 16 match. Lulu blitzed Emma in the first set. Emma rested, fought back, momentum in the second set, eventually winning it. And then right at the start of the third set, she seems to injure herself.
Yeah, took a fall on the grass. It looked like she had hurt her knee, and then she had an extended medical timeout where she was getting some treatment on her back as well. And we don't know what would have happened regardless, but injuries played a huge part in the results today.
What I know is from watching that match that Lulu gives serious Angie Kerber tease with her game. From the ponytail, especially on the serve out wide to the right-hander's forehand on the deuce court. All I saw was Angie Kerber today with that. She has great shape on her shots, able to create angles, power. Like, she looks like a complete player to me. How she presented her game today looked like a solid veteran who'd been in these moments for a long time. Hitting 50-odd winners against Raducanu. I realize a lot of those winner numbers tend to be
They are
exaggerated because of grass.
And at Wimbledon, I think they're fairly liberal with some of the stats, more so than other majors.
It was a clean, thoroughly impressive match from her today to beat Raducanu. And now she's going to have a really good chance to make the semifinals because she's up next against Donna Vekic.
Donna Vekic, who surprisingly had never made a quarterfinal at Wimbledon.
No.
She's great on grass, but this is her first quarter. And another player who has been dealt with some serious injuries in her career, a knee injury and surgery made her want to quit tennis twice, she said. And she was clearly overcome with emotion when she beat Badosa today. Badosa, another player whose career will be shortened by her back injuries.
We often see people tweet about, this match, such a tragedy that somebody has to lose. I really would want either player to win for a variety of reasons. That's how I felt about this match. And Donna said that this is her favorite tournament. We know about her grass court prowess. For me, watching her play, I love her demeanor on court.
Yes.
It gives very grown, serious woman here. You know, like she's not going to be bothered by too much. And when she is, it's giving great expressions on her face.
Yeah.
Her forehand is a bit unconventional aesthetically, but highly effective.
Like one of the best,
Like,
perhaps.
Her cross-court forehand, that little whip that she does,
Yeah.
love it.
And love to see a female coach. We've got Pam Shriver in the box out there. We saw Marian Bartoli coaching Yastremska. So let's see that more.
Of course, we know Conchita is now with Mira Andreeva.
Oh, right.
I guess we should just continue with the bottom half of the women's draw. And the other two matches that happened today, Jasmine Paolini came back to beat Madison Keys, who had to retire at 5-all in the third set. And when I say came back, I mean to say that Madison was so damn unlucky to get injured after leading 5-2 in that third set.
Earlier when I referenced injuries having huge impacts on the results today, Madison injuring herself on the grass and having to retire, then Grigor Dimitrov later in the day taking a fall, having to retire against Medvedev.
Emma.
Right. There are three just on this former Middle Sunday. Emma, of course, was coming in with a lot of momentum. She was playing well in front of the British crowd. We'll talk about what happened with mixed doubles with Andy Murray in a little while. But, you know, unfortunately, injuries follow her. She said she felt some stiffness in her wrist, and now we've got another possible injury that she sustained on the grass, which is not good news.
Okay, but back to the matter at hand.
Yeah.
We're talking about Madison and Jasmine.
This bottom half offered a lot of opportunities for a number of players to break through. Madison, of course, has been to the quarterfinals of every slam. Could have done something really serious here. But Jasmine has gone from no victories on grass to stringing together a few the previous week and now into the quarterfinals here.
6-1 on the surface this year. I had said on the last episode that I'd be hard-pressed myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people would be as well, to look at that section of the draw and not pencil Madison into the quarterfinals. And she was nearly there. Just about. And it didn't happen. And so what we have now is Jasmine Paolini as the top-seeded player at number 7 in the bottom half of the women's draw. Crazy.
apparently Jasmine is becoming very famous in Italy too.
With a serious shot to make the French Open and Wimbledon finals back to back. That is wild.
Yeah. Let's not count our chickens, but she's made it really far. And then that last match in the bottom half today was Coco Gauff, the number 2 seed, versus Emma Navarro.
The one good thing to come out of that match is that our patio is clean now because you took yourself out of the conversation.
Out of contention. As you know, when I get stressed.
I am not about this life. I'm going to go make myself useful.
I didn't like what I was seeing, and there was a lot to sweep up outside. So that's what I did.
You did such a great job, by the way.
Thank you. When I'm stressed and frustrated, I do great work. I did watch most of that match, and Emma she has a pretty complete game. Honestly, I haven't watched too much of her, if we're being 100, but very aggressive on return. Clearly, you saw her creeping up toward the service line on second serves. Coco's serve was clearly off kilter, like she was flustered by it.
You were on Althea Gibson in Charleston, and I left you to go watch some of Emma on Main Stadium while we were there. Because I was curious. I'd never seen her play live before, and I came back and I said to you, well, she's very good.
I have to tell you.
Unfortunately, we'll probably be seeing a lot of this young woman going forward. And the hesitation there on our part is solely having to do with her father.
Yeah, well, no,
and the nepotism.
I'm just never going to stand a billionaire.
Well,
it's just me, okay?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We went to Charleston. Ben Navarro, her dad, owns the tournament. He also owns a financial company that owns the Credit One Bank, which is the title sponsor. And they've done an amazing job. We've said that. The staff that Ben has at that tournament is phenomenal. Great stuff. But I just can't stand a billionaire.
Right.
I just won't.
What we also said from having gone to that tournament was we wanted to see the tournament maybe partner with the African American Museum, with the history of slavery in Charleston, South Carolina, to contribute to black communities in South Carolina. And then we find out today from doing a little bit of digging that Ben Navarro contributed $5 million to Tim Scott. No, that is not.
Does that count?
That is not the contribution. That is not the contributing to black communities and black people that I was talking about at all.
No, but apparently it is the cost of doing business.
I guess. I mean, anti-abortion, anti-gay marriage, all the hits.
Anyway, and I'm sure people will say, why are you talking about her dad right now? You know why? Because Tracy and I think it was Joe on commentary, they talked a lot about him too.
Yeah, pretty much half the first set was talking about Ben Navarro and how great he is and the things that he's done.
Tracy has become friends with him, and we saw Tracy Austin at Charleston this year doing promo and hosting.
She was an ambassador at the tournament.
And it's reminded me so much of when Colleen was playing Venus at the Australian Open and they allowed her uncle to do an interview for 20 minutes during the second set while tennis was being played.
Kiki ran away.
This is a petty personal thing on my part, but it just, to me, it emphasizes the clubby kind of insider nature of tennis that it's the part of tennis that I dislike the most.
The insular nature of tennis at that level.
And to me, it's okay, well, these are actually the type of people that belong here, and they might be great, wonderful, nice people. I don't know. But I don't want to hear about commentators being friends with all these important people. It's just, it leaves a really sour taste in my mouth. But anyway, Emma really played probably a perfect match, and Coco did not.
But back to the tennis at hand. Yeah. Because, stick to sports.
Shut up and dribble.
Emma played great. She has such a fluid, complete game. She can really do anything on a tennis court. And she has this rhythmical motion that kind of reminds me of a Vinci in some spots. I don't know if it's the ponytail that has to do with it. I've seen people compare her to Jankovic. You
Yeah.
said that she's kind of a hybrid between Panetta and Vinci.
Oh, I was just saying her appearance. Like, she
Okay.
looks like Flavia and Roberta, kind of.
I also saw somebody refer to her as a tennis plant.
Like an industry plant?
And so if you were to go that route, you could say she's an AI-generated composite of many different players.
Right.
To then create this one player that doesn't seem to have many flaws. Maybe not the best at anything specifically, but so competent at so many different things.
Definitely. And I don't think that Coco handled the match very well. She could have won it, but I think, she was being forced into trying too much, going too big. Like, she was flustered on her ground strokes. When hitting second serves, she's seeing a player like inch forward, way further advanced into the court than most players do. And it really like rattles you, I think.
It reminded me a lot of the Wimbledon final from last year where Ons was up early in that match but still was flustered. That's what it felt like to me. Maybe that kind of happened a little bit delayed in this match for Coco. There was a little bit more tension before Emma wrested control of the match at the end of that first set. But Coco was not able to regain her composure in this match. And I think a lot of it, you, in our private talks this week, have been hesitant to lay the blame of a lot of these struggles down to the surface. And I think grass has a lot to do with it because she's rushed further on her forehand. The second serve is still a liability. It's not as easy for her to regroup on this surface as it is on others, much like Iga Swiatek.
Mm-hmm. I think people with Coco, they see, okay, big first serve, great backhand. She can do it here. She'll be great on grass. And because she had that big breakout in 2019 at Wimbledon. But I don't really think she's a natural on the serve. Like, is anyone at this point, who is a natural on grass? They play so few tournaments on it every year. And so you see less and less grass court specialists, right?
Sure, but it was, as always, a tactic to attack her forehand. Mm-hmm. And that is an even bigger problem for her, for me, on this surface.
Yeah.
But she could, if she's able to figure out the forehand, as is the case on other surfaces, then she can play better here.
Totally.
So as it stands, one of Lulu Sun, Donna Vekic, Emma Navarro, or Jasmine Paolini will make the Wimbledon final.
And it may not be the lineup that you expect, but it is kind of great.
Is that...
No, because people are going to say, wow, that sucks.
Is it expected of us for that to be the party line?
Probably. Yeah, I'm sure people
Do
probably
you
say
actually believe
anything
that?
WTA does is great. I do. And part of the reason I do is because there is a little bit more order on the top half. Mm-hmm. I don't love when there are two shocking finalists. You know what I mean?
I personally would like to see Donna Vekic do this.
Yeah. And that's part of why
I'm
I think this lineup is great, because I think that these women have actually, they've done it. Like, it's not like they've benefited from walkovers or whatever. Of course, Madison, but like Lulu Sun has done the business.
And this is how it happens. Mm. You're like, oh my God, Jasmine Paolini French Open final. Then lo and behold, she backs it up. And then maybe she backs it up again at the US Open. And then come Australia, you're a Jasmine Paolini fan.
Right.
The idea here is that it's a one and done thing for a lot of these folks. People don't like to see one hit wonders in tennis. And it's always like, oh my God, my fave lost for this.
Right.
Let's just have a little bit of patience and let them have their moment,
We won't spend 20 minutes on each half of each draw, I swear. Moving over to the top half of the women's, there is a little bit more law and order, but not totally. On Saturday, why don't we start there? On Saturday, we lost number one, Iga Swiatek, and the two-time defending runner-up, Ons Jabeur, within about 20 minutes of each other. It was wild times. Starting with Jabeur, she played Alina Svitolina, who was the semifinalist here last year, and Svitolina is becoming somewhat of a grass menace. Or maybe she always was. She made the semi in 2019 as well, and both times she lost to the eventual champion.
I don't know what point you're trying to make here. All I know is that she looked damn good.
That's
against
kind
Jabeur.
Of the point I'm making here. It's the point is that, yes, I so wish that Ons would have won. Like, I want a Wimbledon title for her so badly, but Elina just outplayed her. Like, it's as simple as that.
Because she has craft in her game as well. Those slice forehands.
Oh, the side spin slice forehands were really making trouble for Ons.
Popping first serves like she's popping bottles.
Yeah. Elina just hits with a lot of depth. So many of the tricks and feathery touches that we normally see from Jabeur, Svitolina was actually doing. And that was kind of interesting to see. So she plays Wang Xinyu in the next round to get to the quarterfinals. It would not be shocking to see Svitolina back in the semifinals, but there's a big, big barrier in the way in the shape of Jelena Rybakina. But let's also talk about Iga.
You're really just all over the place.
What?
You went down the bottom of the... Anyway,
Well,
continue.
They happened back-to-back
Okay.
yesterday. That's why I'm putting them together.
Okay.
Obviously, Iga's loss was the talk of the town yesterday, and you'll see so many post-mortems about her ability on grass, the state of her mental game, all of these things.
Is she now overrated? Is she a one-surface wonder? Is she just not as great as people make her out to be?
Right, which is absolutely wild because of all of the incredibly dominating Masters wins on hard courts. She can play on any surface.
It tells me two things. One, you're not paying attention to the tour. And two, you don't value results on the tour. And that you only value going to Wikipedia and looking up career statistics and whether it's purple, green, yellow, or slightly orange
It's like,
or beige.
she hasn't won a slam outside of Roland Garros since 2022. That wasn't even 2 years ago yet. Right? The US Open in 22. Iga has plenty of time to improve on the surface. I think maybe even more so than the surface right now, at least in the match against Putintseva was zoning. She made, I think, one unforced error in the second set. She just wasn't giving anything. She was able to rattle off 9 straight games against Iga. When does that happen? Ever.
That is wild.
And I think what was going on there partly is, okay, your opponent is playing really well, but you won a first set without much drama, and then things start to go wrong, and I think Iga does still struggle with that mental side of her game. Like, when her game isn't dominating, sometimes she's very successful at resetting, and other times she's not.
The two fallouts from this match for Iga stem from the bathroom break at the end of the second set, purported by some to be 10 minutes, and then also her comments in press afterward. During this bathroom break, Putintseva is at the back of the court and she's looking up at Kader Nooney, like, what's going on? And he's looking at her, and they're doing this communication thing with their eyes and then smiles. They're like, oh, you see this, right? And he's like, I see it.
They
You see it?
exchange
I
this
see
cute
it.
smile.
And then they're smiling like, oh yeah, we know what's going on. And I'm sitting there, I'm just wondering, the nerve and the gall of this young woman.
Of Yulia?
Of the scammer in chief. Of, if it's not one scam, it's another.
Sloane clocked her tea.
To be the victim here in this situation. It is truly a moment.
To be fair, I just want to say, it wasn't really a lot of her complaining. It was more so like tennis Twitter people complaining about Iga's bathroom break. It's like, of course it is against Putintseva, who is the scammer in chief, but I mean, whatever. We're not going to do a whole bathroom gate thing.
No, but the point is,
it's within the rules.
She acknowledged what people thought was going on at the moment.
Yes.
She was aware of it in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Iga came back after a little while. The crowd was not happy. Like, at that point, they were not on her side. Kader calls time, and then she really takes her time picking out a racket as well. And then the crowd is like, what is going on? Like, get on the court. And we're not, we've been canceled before over this, over the journal and the breaks and whatever. Not interested in throwing any stones about bathroom breaks or anything. But
because bottom line, it's within the rules.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's within the rules. Iga did not do something outside of the rules.
Right.
And so, I don't know what to tell you. It's the type of thing that if you're an Iga supporter, you're likely to be like, this is not a big deal, it's overblown. If you're somebody who is an Iga hater, you're going to be like, and exhibit 16.3b slide 4. Here we go.
You're going to zero in on that and say that's another example of gamesmanship.
Mm-hmm. When what's most interesting to me here is that Iga still has a lot more figuring out to do on this surface. Figuring out that, for me, is very doable. I thought it may have happened this year. We saw her make the quarterfinals last year. You talked on the last episode about how her losses on grass have not been that bad to the players that she's lost to. Again, this time she lost to Yulia Putintseva, who just won a grass court tournament. But people are also spoiled where you have somebody who is so dominant as a number one and you expect them to then be dominant at slams year round, like we've seen with Serena Williams for the last 2 decades.
At least making, is it reasonable to expect one person to make the semis of every slam? Like every slam they play? Like this is not Chris Evert.
I mean, that's what Sabalenka's been doing the last 2 years.
Last year, yeah, definitely.
My point is, Iga is still a great tennis player. This was not an embarrassing result tennis-wise for me. Perhaps her behavior after the match in press conference, you could say that may be a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, that's not...
I was surprised by that.
I don't know, I don't know. I don't know. It was just, it fell flat for me.
Like anything in particular about the press conference? Because a lot of people may not have actually listened.
Yeah, she was just saying that she didn't prepare for this tournament like she should have. And now she knows how she should prepare for it. And she'll do that next year. I'm like...
Okay. Got it. I was surprised, honestly, because her serve is so much improved. And that's going to be a big help for her on the surface. Whatever. She has so many years to figure it out. And she is the type of player who will go back and study and figure it out. That sets up a Putintseva-Ostapenko 4th round match. I hope you're ready. Between these two? At Wimbledon? Okay. They have met 4 times and they're 2-2. One of their matches, there was this... Putintseva does this crazy celebration thing in opponents' faces. And she did it to Ostapenko and Elena was not happy. I don't know if you've seen this video. Danielle Collins.
She beat Haddad Maya in an absurd match.
Yes.
Absurd mostly because so much of the first week has been interrupted by rain. This match, probably more so than most. And every single interruption benefited Danielle Collins. If I were Bia Haddad Maya, I'd be so mad. And Danielle acknowledged as much in her post-match interview, saying, essentially she got kind of lucky.
Danielle was down love 4 in the first set, and then the first rain delay happened. And that changed the momentum completely. She ended up winning the first set 6-4, reeled off those 6 games in a row.
Ended up being like 9 games in a row.
Right, because the final score was 6-4, 6-4. But the 2 rain delays stopped Haddad Maya's momentum each time. And like you said, Danielle mentioned that, and she said, this is part of tennis. It's something that I struggled with in the past, and I've really worked on how to stay in the zone. I don't know how players do it. It's kind of amazing to me. But, this retirement tour, she's gotten so great at doing these speeches, and she even touched on the idea of, being a woman and being called all of these things, and sort of the limits on the type of emotions you're allowed to express as a woman without being labeled in certain ways. And she's learned to say, F it, as she said, and embrace it.
Today, Matthew McConaughey tweeted about her, saying, Danielle Collins is one of the secretly great sport life stories of 2024, major proof of, quote, first time's the last mental state.
I love that. And I hope Danielle Collins will get even more attention during this last year.
She takes on Babs Krejcikova. Wow.
Babs, what are you doing here?
Nobody
saw this.
Babs snuck her way through to the round of 16 as a 31 seed, opening against Kudermetova and beating her in 3 sets, then beating Volinets, who's had a great year, in the second round, 7-6, 7-6, and then she takes out the woman who beat the defending champion in the 3rd round. Buzas Monero having to retire down love 6-3-4 in that third round match.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get Danielle Collins against Krejcikova. And then to complete that top half, we have Rybakina against Kalinskaya and Svitolina against Wang Jinyu. Now, this is where you've waited patiently for 30 minutes to be able to talk about this one scenario, because Caroline Wozniacki, Esquire, returned in full force at this tournament.
Oh, Caroline. During her match against Leylah Fernandez, they were playing on an outside court. It's later in the day, and Caroline she's starting to bother the chair umpire, Ava Azaraki Moore, to call play. It's too dark, I can't see. And she keeps saying it, right? Like, she is badgering Ava. And it's not even 8:30 p.m. yet. You know the sun sets late in England.
Right.
Because
there could be cloud cover, whatever.
Sure.
That's not necessarily the point you want to be making. The point here is that play was happening on every other court.
Oh, yes.
At this point.
Play was continuing. The official sunset time wasn't until like 9:20. So there is still some light. Caroline saying, I can't see. And for a lot of it, Ava was giving her like, well, that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. But eventually the supervisor comes out and they call play at, I think, around 8:30. And Leylah is like, what is going on? Like, I want to continue. And neither player really had the momentum. It wasn't, it's not like it wrested momentum from one player. It was pretty tight. A supervisor suspended play on that court. Caroline got what she wanted. The match has then moved to number one court.
After the completion of the match that was on that
right.
court. But the point is, other matches were still going on.
Right. It usually, at Wimbledon, they have light sensors. It's a very intricate system. And normally they would call play for light on all the courts, I think. But anyway, it moved to court number one.
Wozniacki closes out that match.
And,
the commentator...
And I'm mad.
One of the commentators says... What did that commentator say?
She didn't mean it like I meant it. She said Caroline kind of stole that match from Fernandez. And I'm like, literally. And at the end of the day, it's not that big a deal. But it's one of those things about Caroline and other players that they're going to take every opportunity to get an advantage, right? And that's part of being a competitor. But Caroline is a very famous complainer. And she complained and complained and complained until she got her way, and then she won. And I don't like that type of behavior. I think it's distasteful.
Well, she got her way, and that way led her to Jelena Rybakina and a trouncing, a demolition, a destruction of 6-love, 6-1 in the third round. It was at once precise, clean, and hideous.
First set, Rybakina was unplayable. An absolute domination. Then there's a rain delay. Caroline wins one game. David Witt stands up, gives a big round of applause. The crowd gets excited. And that was that. She won that one game, and that was that. David Lee. Who's David Witt? The coach.
Listen. I'm taking applications for a new co-host because I don't know what the hell just happened.
Why can I never remember Caroline's husband's name? Or what sport he played. What sport did he play?
He played basketball, but you should know
for the Knicks.
In part.
Okay.
But you should also know who David Witt is.
I do. But, okay, David Lee.
Yes.
It was a Freudian slip. I'm allowed to make mistakes.
Thank you.
Caroline would have roasted me for that. She's always ready.
All right. So that is the state of the top half. Their fourth round matches are to be played tomorrow, Monday. To recap, Putintseva against Ostapenko, Collins, Krejcikova, Rybakina, Kalinskaya, Svitolina against Wang Jinyu, who took out Pegula in the second round.
Who's your ideal finals? Not your prediction, but who would you like to see in the finals?
I would go Vekic against any of Ostapenko, Collins, Svitolina.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Danielle, Donna.
Okay.
That's what I'd like to see.
I want to go back quickly to the women's bottom half because it's so fresh in our minds, what we watched today. Emma Navarro also beat Naomi Osaka, keep in mind. This is two massive wins against our faves.
Yeah.
And then in this match against Coco, I think what was most frustrating for me and for you, if I may speak for you, is just how lost Coco seemed on court. Mm-hmm. In that second set, especially when she was yelling at her box, saying to Brad, like, give me something, tell me something. Like, you're not saying anything.
What are they supposed to say? I
did not like that.
Yeah.
At all. You are world number 2. Sure, you're still just 20 years old. You're still developing, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that was...
Well, players do this all the time, right?
They do it all the time.
Even Danielle screams at them, like, you got to give me something more for energy. But I know that Coco can think through that match. Yeah. I know she can. She didn't, but...
It felt like a crutch, whereas in previous times she may have maybe figured something out because she had to. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It was just dispiriting all around to watch as a Coco fan. And I hope to not experience that again.
But she's gaining points from last year. Last year she lost in the first round. And we're going into, well, she's got a lot of points to defend over the summer. But these are great vibes. You know, these tournaments coming up for her.
On the men's side, the tournament, as we mentioned in the preview episode, dominated by news of Andy Murray. This was to be his swan song. It ended up not happening in singles, but he played doubles alongside his brother, losing their first match.
There was a big ceremony after the match. For some reason, Holger Rune was there, but there were a number of players and luminaries on the court. They played a video, and the great and beloved Sue Barker was back to interview Andy and kind of facilitate his retirement speech, I guess. And she did a phenomenal job, of course. She's just so natural, and she was even at the very beginning starting to tear up, and I was like, is she going to be able to get through this as anyone? But she she soldiered on, and it was really a lovely moment.
I gave you a lot of grief on the last episode, your rant about Andy Murray and why he was going through all this and for what. And I think we saw, even though it wasn't in a singles match, what that was for.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I want to make it clear, if it wasn't clear last episode, I love Andy Murray. Right? I'm not one of like the diehard stans, but I've really loved him, especially since the vulnerability we saw in the 2012 Wimbledon final when he lost to Roger and was really just overcome. And I like to see a man who's not afraid to cry in public. And it was, at that time, it was just so natural to feel for him. You know, I felt overcome for him. And I've liked him ever since. He has a lot of, he's a very straightforward person, but I think he has a lot of layers to his personality because you see such a gruff, dour, like mean to himself person on court.
We may do a more expansive post-mortem of Andy's career at a later date.
Right.
But I just want to say in this moment that the thing that I will remember most or appreciate most about Andy Murray as a player, having watched him for the entirety of his career, is what he represented in and amongst that shambolic group of men that he played with and against. We did an entire episode called Why Andy Murray's Feminism Matters. And on the face of it, it's a very low bar. You have this man who is saying what we feel to be very straightforward, simple, basic things about women's inclusion in sport. But for Andy, he kept his foot on people's necks with this stuff throughout his entire career. This was not just to score some points here or there. He championed women's sports. He championed women's tennis. He championed women's players. Always. And I will never forget that there were some within the tennis commentariat, be it on air or having podcasts, who mocked that.
Right.
Repeatedly.
Said, oh, wow. So impressive, that you correct the record on who has the most gold medals, for example.
I mean, not just that, but also just mocked him for it. Right. And us and other people.
I think mocked people who they felt made too much of it, right? Mm-hmm. But as you said, the bar is so low, and there's an open invitation to any male player
to raise the bar.
To reach that very low bar. And almost nobody has taken up that invitation, right? That's why this is exceptional. Maybe Denis Shapovalov, who did a whole package about pay equity, and his eyes were opened because of his girlfriend, right? And Andy said his eyes were opened when he employed Amelie Mauresmo as his coach.
He was always wary of being seen as, quote, the male savior, you know?
Right. Or getting too much credit for...
Yes.
Yeah.
But he repeatedly touted the accomplishments of women. You mentioned that famous thing that persists to this day, where he interrupts the interviewer to say, male player.
Or when he said, don't Venus and Serena have like 5 gold medals?
Mm-hmm. And of course his accomplishments as the 4th member of the Big Four. Some people tried to argue that it was Stan.
It was not.
It was not Stan.
There is, for practical purposes, there is a Big Four and there is a Big Three.
And Andy's position in that Big Four meant that for him to achieve that, he had to sacrifice his body. And that's where we are today. Mm-hmm. That is part of his story. Part of the struggle of being an Andy Murray fan is going through the 5 sets, going through the sour dour moments on court, going to great emotional lengths of suffering following him on a tennis court. That is now almost over.
Mm-hmm. This is his last Wimbledon, according to him. And so after this doubles loss, they did the big ceremony, but there was still a mixed doubles match to be played. He had partnered up with Emma Raducanu, and they were in the mixed doubles draw. And the news came out early yesterday morning that Emma was pulling out because she had experienced some stiffness in her wrist, which has been operated on fairly recently. It's a very serious injury, and it shouldn't be surprising, considering Emma's recent track record, that she pulled out of mixed, because she actually had a good chance in singles.
Which begs the question, why did she agree to it in the first place?
Yeah, there are a number of things here, and most of the news focused on what Judy Murray tweeted in response to a tweet from Marcus Buckland announcing the news.
Marcus Buckland said, "Astonishing news that Emma Raducanu has withdrawn from her mixed doubles match with Andy Murray. She's citing soreness in her right wrist. It means Murray has played his last match at Wimbledon. Oh dear." And then Judy Murray replies and says, yes, comma, astonishing, period. That was it. That's all she said.
Right. People run with this. Of course, there are a number of ways to interpret this, but the most common interpretation was she was expressing a little frustration that Emma pulled out and that Andy's career at Wimbledon was therefore finished. Judy made her Twitter account private shortly after that because the backlash was swift and huge.
She disappeared for about 24 hours.
Yeah, so a day later, she comes back. She has unprivated her Twitter account. And in a kind of arrogant tweet, she says, "Not sure anyone understands sarcasm these days."
Pretty sure the scheduling, 4th match on court 1 with a singles match the following day, meaning that's what Raducanu would have to do. Pretty sure the scheduling will have played a major part in any decision making. Meaning, when she said yes, comma, astonishing, period, she was saying, it's not astonishing that Emma would have pulled out because look at what she would have had to have done to play this match. Now,
But we were meant to understand all of that.
I'm a learned person, I think. Not necessarily the smartest person, but I have some education and smarts. And I didn't get... That's not where I would have gone, necessarily, in the first place. And if that's where she wanted to go, she should have clarified that right away. Why go private and then come back to say that and then lash out at people for being stupid, for not being able to discern her sarcasm from 2 words?
Let's look at the context. The British public and the press have loved Emma over these past few weeks. But this is literally the most vicious, vile tabloid press in the world. The British tabloid press. They are so ready to turn on her. So in this context, they're going to be trashing Raducanu as selfish for ending Andy Murray's career. And then you tweet this, you go radio silent, make your Twitter private, and then the next day you scold everybody because we couldn't understand the obvious meaning of your tweet. And so you may have meant what you said, right? You may be being honest right now.
But in the meantime...
Why did it take so fucking long?
You left Raducanu out to dry...
Exactly.
...for an entire day, while
because you know what's going to happen to her.
She's not new.
And so, honestly, like, as this whole thing has blown over or whatever, and the tennis podcast said, Judy tweeted this, let's move on. I'm petty. I don't want to move on. And you know why? Because it's like, it's not even the content of what happened. Like, it's not even the subject. That I can get over. If you tweeted something nasty about someone and then we moved on, fine. But it's treating the rest of us like we're stupid. It's like you didn't see what you think you saw. I find that so offensive.
Because it could just have easily have been, guys, I'm so sorry for the confusion. That is not what I meant. Exactly. I was actually just being sarcastic. This is not a big deal. Andy had his moment. I'm not bitter. Love Emma. Let's move on.
Exactly. Right? What? And you may have done that privately, but in the meantime, the public is going to be flogging this poor woman for what she did. Anyway.
When what she probably shouldn't have done was agreed to play in the first place.
Exactly.
That's the extent of it.
And why did you ask her? You could have asked one of the players who will be going with you to the Olympics. You could have asked Heather Watson. You could have asked Katie Bolter. And you didn't. Or maybe you asked them and they said no. I have no idea. But you selected the most famous of the British women. But you selected someone who has had very serious injury concerns over the past 3 years.
And the stakes for her success in her singles career are at an all-time high right now.
Right. It was honestly, it was really disappointing. And regardless of what she allegedly meant in the first tweet, why did it take so long to correct? That's my question.
And full disclosure, we're fully off the Judy train to begin with because of her alignment with J.K. Rowling and Martina Navratilova. So... fill in those lines.
Yeah. Moving on, though. Andy has retired from Wimbledon, at least. He plans to play the Olympics. Also on kind of surgery, injury updates. Novak had the meniscus surgery. He's wearing this gray brace thing.
Which you think should be at least either purple or green.
I was thinking, like...
why is it gray?
If you're not wearing white, you might as well wear something exciting. It's so drab. But let's please... let's not be those weird conspiracy theorists who are saying, oh, I don't believe that he had surgery at all. I don't believe that he had an injury. Why are you sinking to the level of the fringe members of that fandom? You're being just as bad. I don't like that. If a player says they're injured and they had surgery, that's it. Period.
Stefanos Tsitsipas.
Oh, well, from the school of the Stefanos Tsitsipas non-apology, which is what Judy's clarification was today, Stefanos lost in the second round. He is really concerned about providing while his woman has babies and cooks food.
We talked about that on the last
Somebody
episode.
needs to cook for Paula because she was actually working this week.
He tweeted a video, or he made a tweet with a video of Paula coming to him behind the scenes for a hug after one of her wins. And he was talking about how he's so proud of her, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And one of our listeners, Scholes Talks Tennis.
Oh, had a a platinum tweet.
He quote tweets and says, "Get in the kitchen and make her a sandwich." It was so good. But this was after Stefanos had apologized and said,
supposedly.
guys.
Well, the context here is that he shared this... there's, this trend of like internet traditional tradwife content where, the man is a strong protector and the woman's supposed to have all these babies. And there are a lot of people buying into this right now as not only a philosophy, but very importantly, an aesthetic. Like it's performative to its core. So Stefanos shared this and got so much criticism. And then he issued this very weird, not really apology.
He was quoted as saying, "My intentions were completely different from what people saw." This is straight from the playbook.
This is straight from the Portia Williams apology playbook.
I am a very romantic person, and I like videos, and generally the arts that have to do with something beautiful and impressive. I'm lost.
I actually don't know what's worse, actually, is this worldview or the fact that he thought that was, like, beautiful filmmaking.
So is that what... So it wasn't the content. It was that it was so beautifully shot?
Apparently. I don't know. It was form and content. together.
He said, I saw it from that side too. I didn't see it as being sexist or misogynistic, as it was treated by many people. I will say that I was wrong. I shouldn't have shared something like that because it was misunderstood by many. I've shared something on Twitter before and realized 2 hours later that people might see it differently. I was wrong both times.
So we've got, I don't know, it's such a weird train of thought because it's, I was wrong, I apologize, but you guys just didn't get it.
Like,
right?
Were you wrong because it was a bad thing to do?
Or
you were
we didn't
wrong
get it?
just because we didn't get it? Are you wrong because you were just vacuous?
You know, at the risk of sounding really nasty here, we're just not dealing with a full deck. I'm just saying there is really no use digging further on this.
Okay.
And I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
You can draw whatever conclusion you like.
I guess we're just getting into all the mess before we actually deal with the men's results.
Right, the men were actually playing tennis this past
But
week.
let's do the spicy beef.
There was a little, you know, I love a little spicy beef between the boys. A little white shade, to quote Wendy Williams. So Arthur Rinderknech, the French player, was scheduled to play Taylor Fritz. They had previously met in Roland Garros in 2023, and the crowd, of course, was wild, as they always are, and Taylor shushed them at the very end of the match. That's all he did. But ahead of this rematch, Arthur said, quote, "The atmosphere will be calmer and he will cry a little less. He was a little whiny. I have nothing against him, but if he expected the French public to give him kisses between points, it was a bad time." So this went pretty wide.
This was in, what, L'Equipe? Ahead of the tournament?
So, yeah. Now remember that Arthur was also the guy who kicked a fixture on the court at the French Open this year and injured himself and had to retire.
While he was leading in that match.
Right. So take that in the same context. Taylor heard of this, and later on he said, as soon as I saw that, the match was basically over. He was pissed off.
And then he was asked after the match saying, has it ever happened before? You know, where somebody said something and you get mad, da da da. And he's like, I have never lost when I've been done wrong like that. And I want to know,
okay,
well,
Serena.
how many times has it happened?
Come on,
give me
Serena.
the receipt. I'm not taking your word for it.
No,
I want to know the
I love
moments.
this, though. I really love this. And right after the match at the net, allegedly, Taylor said, "Have a nice flight home."
And Rinderknech was like, I still have doubles to play.
But it was done. Taylor was really pissed about what he said. Because it was so unprovoked, right? Clearly, Rinderknech had been harboring something.
Mm-hmm. And it is such an indication of just how vanilla and bland Taylor Swift's personality is. That
God, what?
Everybody has flocked to this moment as, you know what, I may not have stand before, but I am a stand now. I stand this behavior. Like, this is pretty
tame
pretty
stuff,
low
right?
level stuff
This
here.
isn't like 80s stuff.
But Taylor found something to deliver, and the girlies ate it up.
No, but he delivered.
He delivered.
He ate that.
You know what I would like to see him eat?
Some grass.
That guy in the next round.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I predicted.
Well, you best
think
be making
I
that,
know.
that happen.
Crossing my fingers, I think that Taylor has a very strong chance in the bottom half of this draw.
Okay.
But kudos to Taylor for standing up for himself, because he's actually not a guy to have drama in matches. Like, he doesn't have beefs. So that was such a weird comment.
Francis Tiafoe stepped in it at this tournament.
Francis was talking about the kind of mental pressure of being a tennis player and going through these down periods and how it's tough to deal with. And he said something about, I've been losing to clowns. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, I guess I got where you were going, but it was so unnecessarily mean to his opponents. Like, those guys are also going through similar struggles as a pro tennis player, and they're not clowns.
And so he gets a lot of pushback for that. And then Bublik piggybacks off of it, saying that, he was losing to a lot of what Tiafoe said. And
Right.
people are like, ha 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 ha.
Oh, and it's amusing when he says
Right.
it, right? But when Francis says it, we've got to have a whole, trial about it. And listen, what Francis said was mean. It was really unkind to his peers.
It was unnecessary. It was unthinking for me, was unthinking.
Right.
Because you are a top tennis player now. Like, you should not be doing that.
No. And a part of Francis's appeal is that he does feel very much himself to the press. Like, he does feel very natural, and he's not like there's been a PR polish applied to him.
Right, there's an
but
authenticity.
You do get that. So,
Yeah.
you get comments like that sometimes.
There's an authenticity to Francis that he may argue, or some will argue, that necessitates this kind of comment. Like, that's part
Right.
of who he is.
Right.
But I guarantee you it doesn't have to be that way.
But let's keep that energy for someone like Bublik, who says the most disgusting, homophobic, sexually violent shit on court in a language that we don't understand. But for him, it's like amusing because he's just authentic, right? But this seemed to do something to Francis because he's played better here than he has in months. A long time.
So we're going to get into the tennis.
Right? Oh, yeah.
On the men's side, we'll start with the top half, where Sinner is the top seed. We had pinpointed that second round match against Berrettini as a tough one, and it ended up being 4 sets. 7-6, 7-6, 2-6, 7-6. I think I said that all Berrettini needed to do was win 3 tiebreak sets. Well, that's what Sinner did. He won 3 tiebreak sets.
Damn.
Battle-tested, perhaps. Sinner goes on to beat Kecmanovic, and then today Ben Shelton in 3 sets. He now plays Medvedev in the quarterfinals. The other quarterfinal is going to be Alcaraz against Tommy Paul.
Wow, that's going to be a tough customer, honestly, Tommy Paul. But getting back to that first section, Denis Shapovalov showed signs of life.
Why are you so invested in this?
Am I?
Chapeauissance.
Okay, so I don't know if there's a Chapeauissance yet.
Well, no, I'm saying you were very
I was
hopeful about his chances in the preview episode.
I guess. And I highlighted that first round match against Jarry as a potential upset. And you were like, who cares about that?
Well, he won 2 matches before losing to Ben Shelton in 5 sets. So that's a good result for him.
Yes. But Francis comes in with this possible knee injury and having to play Arnaldi in the first round, and he got through it. And I actually didn't really expect him to win that first round match.
And then he takes out Coric in the second round before losing to Alcaraz in 5 sets in the third round.
For the most part, this men's top half is going to seed. Like, it's proceeding as expected. Casper Ruud was the number 8 seed, but he lost in the second round to Fabio Fognini, the blonde. And the thing is, nobody, including Casper, expects great results on grass.
We had that matchup between Bautista Agut and Fognini in the third round, where it was, they were combined 73, 74 years old.
That's a throwback. And now Bautista is in the round of 16.
Well, he was.
Or was.
He was in the round of 16 before Tommy Paul took him out in straight sets. RBA now at 36, making the second week of a slam for the first time in quite a while.
But Tommy Paul has just solidified so much of his game. He will be a very difficult opponent for Carlos. Carlos is the defending champion, has had to scrap a little bit here against Francis and Ugo Humbert, but we'll see. I mean, I like kind of the shape of this men's top half.
Ruud is the only top 8 seed that didn't advance to the quarterfinals. Like you said, it really played out to form. Grigor could have been one to upset that. But unfortunately, he very early on in his match today, he suffered an injury on court. And then eventually down 3-5, he had to retire against Medvedev.
So we're still on this crash course to a rematch of Sinner and Alcaraz, this time on grass. We'll see if it happens. The men's bottom half is much messier. But there's some exciting stuff going on, right? We have the French player Giovanni Pecci Perricard, who kind of broke out this clay season. And I want you to kind of pull back and realize how rare it is to see a rise that is this rapid.
Do you want to know the last time I think this has happened and what this reminds me of? The spring of 2011 with Milos Raonic.
What? Oh, wow. You really did your research on that one.
Well, I remembered a familiar feeling, and then I went back to look which year it was. But it's Milos coming from the mid 100s to 40 something in the matter of a month or two. This is impressive stuff.
So Giovanni was outside of the top 200 in January. He's risen to officially number 58 by the end of June. His rise was so fast that he still had to go through qualifying here because his rank had only improved like the week before. He lost in the final round of qualifying, got in as a lucky loser, and now he's here in the fourth round to play Lorenzo Musetti. People assumed that he was built for grass, but he excelled so much during the clay season too. Beats number 20 seed Sebastian Korda, who was just the runner-up in Sertogenbosch, and then he knocks out Nishioka in 71 minutes. This is a best-of-5 match. 71 minutes? How is that possible?
This was the half of the draw where we had the upsets where Comesaña from Argentina beat Rublev. You mentioned Perricard beating Korda. We had Kokkinakis beating Felix Auger-Aliassime. That
was a tough one.
This was so bad for Felix. It was so bad. He had 4 match points. Was it in that third set tiebreak? Loses it. It's played over 2 days because of darkness, rain, what have you. And
he should have won on day one.
Should have won on day one. This is a tough one for him to swallow.
Hubert Hurkacz.
Losing to Artur Fils.
Seen as one of the chief challengers to Novak in that section of the draw. Hubie sustained this knee injury that he got from diving.
Okay, so you're talking about the brain tools here.
Well, I
because
wasn't.
At one point, you wanted to come back and make sure you weren't being too harsh. But then he showed that the brain tools weren't there.
I was unkind in the last episode, and I even knew it when I was saying it. That it wasn't particularly kind, and it wasn't the best choice of words. But I think, the mental game needs a lot of work, clearly. But he dives on the grass, like Boris Becker, messes up his knee, gets a medical timeout, and the very first point back from the medical timeout, he dives again. I mean, well, as a coach,
there's a saying.
What do you say?
There's a saying. You have to go big and then go home.
Is that the saying? But now Artur Fils gets through Roman Safiullin, who was a quarterfinalist here last year, and will play Alex de Minaur in the fourth round. Alex is like a grass court, the closest we have to grass court specialist, right? He's advocating for more grass court tournaments on the tour, and he is certainly like a chief challenger here to Novak.
The fourth round matchups, we have Musetti against Perricard, Fritz against that guy, Artur Fils against de Minaur, Holger Rune against Novak Djokovic. Now, Holger barely escaped that fourth set against Quentin Alice in the third round.
Ooh, he almost got bageled in the first set.
Had Quentin challenged a call against him, it might have been a completely different story at the end of that fourth set. Instead, Holger races through the fifth. He's had a straight sets win in the first round over Sun Woo Kwon. He's had a 4-set win over Zaibush Vuj in the second round, and now 5 sets against Quentin Alice in the third round. Is it good preparation for having to play
He's so
Djokovic in the fourth round?
Djokovic says that he is still dealing with the fallout from the meniscus issue. He's working with physios to make sure that he's recovering quickly, but he's not 100%. They have met 5 times. Djokovic leads 3-2. Their matches have been close. They've met only one time in a major, I believe at the US Open, and Novak won. But I actually think that Holger has a shot here.
We shall see.
But you didn't ask, but my pick for the bottom half, I think Fritz is the most likely to come through this. I really do.
Oh, he got a little saucy and spicy, and all of a sudden now you're on the Taylor Swift Eras tour.
That's not even it. I just think he's been impressive. He's been economical, efficient. And he plays that guy next. I could be eating my words, but that guy is not a natural on the surface. He's never made it past the fourth round. I see Fritz winning that.
You will be
more.
You'll be fined heavily.
Fined?
If Fritz does not win that match tomorrow.
Okay.
We're pretty much at the end of the episode. One last parting shot from me. We go through these tournaments. players feel their oats. They're feeling themselves. They have a cute first round win, play impeccably. They may win a couple matches, and then they take to social media and they do these, some steal pictures from other people and present them without accreditation. But it's their moment, there's 4 of these big moments a year, and here they are. Personally, if I were a tennis player, I would not be posting these things after 1 match, 2 matches, or even the entire tournament. Because the chances of me falling on my face and looking really bad they're high. So I don't want to pick on one player.
But you will?
I saw many, but this is the one that really just stood out to me. After her first round win, Sloane Stephens posted on Instagram saying, locked in. She's ready to go. Mm-hmm. And then she was summarily locked out the following round.
Not locked out. Damn.
I'm just saying, these captions, you're setting yourself up for bad-minded people. I love Sloane. I support Sloane.
Right.
But when I read that, I'm just like, what are you doing?
This is part of the game, right?
I try and put myself in their shoes, and I just cannot fathom doing that. If I were a tennis player, I'd be so scared
because of superstition,
of the comments and superstition and what people would say, and bad-minded people like myself who have tennis podcasts and what they will say after I lose.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
It just simply could not be me.
Locked in, prepared to be blocked out by Sloane. How about that?
This is the end of our mid-Wimbledon episode.
And I realized it's not our 39th slam. It's
so you lied?
It's our 38th because Wimbledon didn't happen in 2020.
Wow. Mm-hmm. There you go. My name is Jonathan. You can find me on Twitter at tennis_John.
I'm James at ElliotJMR.
2 L's, 2 T's.
We are at linktree.com/thebodyserve.
I would love a great review on iTunes.
Oh, you would?
If you've got it in you, don't you think? It's been a while since we've shamelessly solicited for reviews.
Yeah, we love reviews. They're very helpful. So if you are so inclined.
It's one of the tangible ways, the tangible non-monetary ways that you can support the show.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you for listening.
Till next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.